Oh, way down south in the land of traders, rattlesnakes and alligators. Right away, come away, right away, come away.
Hey, I'm Brian. I'm here with Monument. I'm actually trying to work here, but it's slow. So there are two categories of people in the world who especially dislike me. Now, you know, I rub people the wrong way just like everybody does, but there's two groups especially dislike me. One of those groups complains that I've always got an American flag everywhere, that I carry American flags to liberal events and left events, and you know, I will sing the national anthem, and I genuinely believe that I live in a great country that has tremendous potential if we would just live up to our founding creed. And there are people who come to me and say, but it's a white supremacist symbol. And I'm like, well, it isn't, and it's what it is a symbol of has a lot to do with what we make it a symbol of. Right, so there are people who really get mad at me for my whole patriotism thing. And then there are people who will see me with the flag, but they think I'm some kind of a crazed leftist, and so they think the patriotism is fake. And I'm just, you know, putting up a flag to conceal myself. It's literal false flag operation. I would really like those two groups of people to get together and have a conversation, so that the people who excoriate me for my patriotism and the people who don't think that I am a patriot can go ahead and have it out amongst themselves, and maybe between them they can figure out that I am a patriot who understands that America has a horrific history, which is why I've taken education on that specific fact on as my big activism task, but that I think that if we will actually hold true to our founding creed, the proposition that all men are created equal, then we will achieve our country. All right, the other way of putting these two groups, because it's the exact same two groups of people. Some people are annoyed that I am not a socialist. It's like, Brian, why don't you just go ahead and join Democratic Socialists of America? Well, because I'm not a socialist. But you agree with us about everything. No, I don't, because I don't agree with you about socialism. And all the stuff that I agree with y'all about, it's got nothing to do with socialism. I mean, y'all are into police reform. Y'all, DSA, are into police reform. I don't know what that would have to do with socialism. So, yeah, I mean, we agree about this thing. I'm perfectly happy that y'all are supporting a cause that I think is worthwhile, but I don't see what it has to do with the collective ownership of the means of production. So, yeah, I'm not a socialist. I think that a free market economy is what is necessary. Profit motive is what is necessary to make entrepreneurial discoveries. I think that profit is the only way that people have, that the society as a whole has of conveying its interests, the things that it is able to produce, that it desires to consume. I think that the only way to assemble that information is by pursuing profit. I think that the pursuit of profit is both enables entrepreneurial discovery because it channels capital toward people who can then use their ideas, because they can use the capital to pay workers to make things, and that also entrepreneurial discovery needs to be oriented toward profit. So if you don't have profits in your system, I don't think that you're going to make an awful lot of entrepreneurial discovery, and so I think that you're not going to have much in the way of economic development. Or another way of putting it is, I think that money is the way in which we correlate different people's capacities. And so in just the same way that I'm a body and there's another body somewhere, and we're put into a certain kind of coherent, intelligible relationship by the fact that we share a language, okay, different people's abilities and preferences are put into a relationship by the fact that they're all offering to spend money or buy things in the same unit of currency. It's a unit of communication. Right, so not like the Supreme Court said, but in another really important sense, spending money is a form of expression. I don't mean it's a kind of First Amendment protected speech, but it is an expression of your interests, values, and preferences. The only way to capture that is with profit and loss statements, right? To get rid of the profit and loss statements, to see to it that capital is collectively owned, is to get rid of the possibility of that is to get rid of the possibility of profit, is to get rid of the possibility of taking advantage of the information that people convey when they are buying things. So it is weirdly an asocial view, where instead of trying to deal as an individual with society as a whole, you're going to try to personalize everything and make it so that your society is just a whole bunch of individual relationships. And that is not how people are. Right? We are social beings, not just interpersonal beings. All right, so not a socialist. I've never been a socialist. I've never been tempted by socialism. I was reading the Austrian economists when I was 15, right? I read von Mises' book on socialism, in which you find basically that argument I just trotted out when I was 15 or 16, and I've never been remotely tempted to change my mind about it, right? I've deepened that argument over time because I've learned more things about money and the nature of money and, you know, Hayek and Aristotle and a whole bunch of stuff. But no interest whatsoever in socialism. I'm a capitalist all the way down. And on the other hand, you know, people will say, oh, you're anti-Confederate, so you must be a socialist, which is a weird confession, right? That it's either white supremacy or else socialism. And if someone presents that as the options, it's no wonder that people become socialists. Right? Anybody who says, but look, if you're not pro-Confederate, if you're not a white supremacist, you must be some kind of a communist, is essentially telling people, y'all ought to be communists because the only alternative is to be a racist. And people wonder why it is that there are crazed, angry mobs of white people in the street who are overeducated. Right? They believe that the alternatives are what they are presented with, and those are racism and socialism. The possibility of an America that is not racist does not cross their mind, right? So it's either we have a total revolution and an evil socialist tyranny, or else we stick with racism. Those have no actual logical relationship with them. To say that someone is a socialist because they're not a white supremacist, however subtle white supremacy might be, is just to encourage people to become radical leftists, right? If you ever wonder why it is that people become radical leftists when radical leftism seems like it's obviously a bad idea, it's because they believe American so-called conservatives when they say that if you are anything other than some kind of a low-grade white supremacist, if you are anywhere in the vicinity of FDR's politics or Theodore Roosevelt's politics, you must be a socialist. They believe you. When you say that, they believe you. So you're creating your own opposition. So, sorry guys, I'm not a socialist, no interest in socialism. In my classes, so I teach philosophy, I teach ethics, and I think that the fact that we are producing and trading beings is a vitally important fact about us that we often don't really reflect on. So in my class, I do teach some Karl Marx. I teach Karl Marx's book about how it is that work is the defining quality of human beings. That what it is to make yourself human is to engage in productive labor that you have freely chosen. Right? I mean, Marx is all about people not getting paid for not working. Right? You can even say that his focus is on people not being sort of leeches off the system. But he has some very deep and interesting thoughts, completely continuous with the literal Puritan Protestant work ethic, about how work, freely chosen labor, is what makes you the individual that you are. Right? So I do teach that, but I also teach Aristotle's theory about money and trade and commerce. But I also teach Adam Smith. Right? And you know, none of my students have ever had anyone pitch the free market to them in the kind of terms that I use. Now, I am not employed by Austin Community College to advocate unregulated capitalism. So I don't quite advocate unregulated capitalism in class. But still, I think that I put capitalism in the best possible light. And I put socialism in the best possible light, but the best possible light for socialism is still pretty dark. Right? So I would like it if the people who complain that I'm not a socialist and the people who say that I am a socialist would get together and try to get that debate all nice and cleared out. Now, that's all me, and I'm really not the interesting subject here. It's just kind of happened to notice that sometimes people are talking about me. The interesting thing is that monument up there and the fact that it conceals our history. Right, so here we are at a county courthouse. It's in the United States, it's in 2020. No county in the United States in 2020 would come out and say, we support white supremacy, we think that white people are better than black people, we think that black people should be subordinated legally. Nobody would say that. But they got this Confederate monument here. Well, they can't possibly be announcing white supremacy. So the monument can't possibly be an announcement of white supremacy. Well, but the monument is praise of the Confederacy. Well, we can't possibly be praising white supremacy, so the Confederacy can't have been white supremacist. But it was. And if you don't know that, you don't understand anything from American history. If you can't recognize the Confederacy as white supremacist, then nothing will look to you like it's white supremacist. I mean, if someone just coming out and saying people are not equal, the Declaration of Independence was wrong, white people are better than black people, and we are willing to kill people to establish that, if that doesn't sound racist to you, nothing else will. Right? So if you can't tell that the Confederacy is racist, you can't identify racism. And it doesn't cost us anything to recognize that the Confederacy was white supremacist. This was 150 years ago. Right? It cost me nothing. Right? Whereas to acknowledge contemporary institutional racism, I might have to do something about it, or at least let somebody do something about it. Right? So that might actually require some effort, or at least thought. And if you can't even just casually know an historical fact, you certainly are not going to be interested in current events. That's the effect of this monument. It conceals our history in a way that makes it impossible to understand our present situation as a country and make it so that we can make ourselves better and actually achieve our country, live by our founding creed, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. That's what this is all about. All right, bye.